So this episode we will talk about how to open a bottle of wine, and although it might seem very basic, when I've been running the wine courses for around 160-170 crew during the years, it's often a thing that we bring up, and it can be a good revision. So we're going to talk about how to open a bottle of wine correctly, and the start of service, and also for regular wine and for champagne. So when if the charter guest has ordered a wine, he has looked at the wine list and he ordered a bottle of wine. When you present the wine to him, you go and get the wine bottle, of course. And when you present it before you open it, just to make sure it's the correct bottle, I find it useful and helpful to the client to help read the label, because the label can be a lot of information. It can be difficult just with a second glimpse. It's difficult to see that you did get the right wine or the right vintage. So it's helpful to say, well, here is the wine. It's Chateau Larnaud from Côte de Provence, and the vintage is 2008. So if you help the guest to really know that that's the wine he chose. Once he agreed to this bottle, or she, you go to a side table. A wine bottle should always be opened where the clients can see it. So you will go to a side table, never open it on their table. You go to the side table, and the label should always be facing, if possible, the guests. And there are different corkscrews. I recommend you to always use a limonadier, it's called in French, I don't know what it's called in English, but these ones with a where you can, this is like a two levels corkscrew, and this one should be on Teflon. If it's not on Teflon, it's much easier that the cork will break after. These corkscrews like these, they're very unprofessional, and they're not to be used outside the galley, because it just looks doesn't look good and doesn't look professional at all. And those big one, the screw pull, or what they're called when you do like that, that's also not recommendable. So then you cut. Some people cut the foil here, and a long time ago that you needed to cut it here because there was the capsule was made of lead, and if it's made of lead, then there was some toxics in the lead, so that's why people said you had to cut it here. Nowadays there are different schools, but I often cut here. So you cut first one way and then the other, so you don't, the bottle actually stays still. And then you put the screw in. And it shouldn't be, depending, it's difficult to know how long the cork is, but it shouldn't be all the way down, but something like this. And then when the thing that is very good when you have two steps like this is that you avoid bending the cork. If you have one step, it's very easy to bend the cork, and since on yachts there's a lot of problems with bad storage, the corks tend to be quite soft. So you do first step like that, and if you always hold the hand like this, you really avoid the breakage of the cork. If you don't hold like this, it's very easy that the cork goes to the side and will break. So then there are different schools as well. Some people smell the cork. I don't smell the cork. People do it because they think if the cork smells bad, that will give you an indication if the wine is bad or not. But actually the cork can look terrible and the wine be perfect. I'm sure you've opened bottles sometimes and they've been all moldy, or they can be wet all through, but that doesn't at all mean that the wine is not going to be good. So I find that a useful, unnecessary step, but please do smell the cork if perhaps they want you to. Then there's also, some people want the cork on the table, so you can take a small coaster, so a small metal plate, and you put the cork by the host, and you can leave it there only for perhaps the first 15 minutes or something, and then you can take it away. Then you should always, when you do wine service, you should always have a white napkin. And now the bottleneck was fine, but if it would have been an older bottle, there might be some sediment or something you need to wipe off. All wines that are closed with a cork, a natural cork like this, they can, 5% of all wines closed with a natural cork, around 5%, has a cork defect. I'm sure you've heard of the expression, oh, the wine is corked. It's nothing dangerous with that at all, but the wine will have a very musty musty aroma and smell of no fruit, and smell like wet cardboard or dirty swimming pool, some people talk about. It's a bit chlorine, humid earth cellar. And since there's a 5%, it's quite a lot, so you're bound to have opened, if you haven't tasted all the wines you've opened, and one of them would have been corked, at least. And so I recommend you to either, every bottle that is open has to be tried either by you or by the owner or the charter guest. So what you do, you can do it by the side table. You have a small glass for yourself. And if you don't feel comfortable drinking in front of the guests, you can just smell it. And if it smells good to you, really like this like wine was like full of black fruit, there's nothing wrong with it at all, you can just go ahead and then you pour a bit to the host and you let him try as well. And once he has agreed to the wine, then you can continue serving everybody. And please don't forget to serve the host. It's very easy to forget to reserve the host once he agreed to the wine. I also would like to stress the fact that every bottle, even though he agreed to the wine, that he wants this wine, if he don't just keep opening bottle and reserve them, every bottle needs to be tried, because if you have, say, 10 people on a table with fancy wine glasses, and perhaps you don't have another set of 12 red wine glasses, and you serve a corked bottle, perhaps nobody will notice and then you're fine, but if one of them noticed, say, oh, it's corked, then you have to change in the middle of the dinner, and perhaps the food is ready in the galley, you have to change all those 12 wine glasses, and then it can be a very complicated situation. That's why you should always make the host try the wine. Even if his wine is still full of wine, just bring a new small glass to him and say, please, would you mind trying this bottle, that it's okay. And if he doesn't want to, perhaps you try it for him. And if you feel, oh, I'm not sure about this, maybe then you need to ask him. Because if the host has said yes, of course his guest will not say, oh, actually this is corked, I guess. So this is how to open a red wine and serve that. And when you serve the service of wine, it should only be to the widest point of a glass. It should never be more. And when you do it for trying, for just testing the wine, of course, then it can be much, much less. It should be much less. So for opening a champagne bottle, I've seen a lot of people, both in restaurants and, well, not on yachts, because I don't go on yachts so often, at least not as a guest. It's very important, because there's a danger with opening a champagne bottle. It's the same, I mean, if they chose a champagne, you will present the bottle. You will say it's from the 2005 and the name of the champagne. And there is a lot of pressure. It's as much pressure in a champagne bottle as there is in a heavy, or like a big truck. Not in the truck, but in the what do you say? The wheels, or the wheels of the big truck. So there's a lot of pressure, and there's been accidents happening when you're not careful. So first you take off the foil, and then you take off the metallic thread. And so what you cannot do is take off this metallic thread without keeping your fingers on, or your thumb on the cork. If you would do so, this can go off any time, and people have actually gone blind by the force that this is coming out with. And according to all rules and regulation, you're supposed to take off this first and keep your thumb on top of it. I normally don't actually, I normally do it the same time, but this is, and then you make sure that it's a lot of pressure on the cork. And then when you open it, you're not supposed to turn the cork, you're supposed to turn the bottle. So you keep your hand steady and still, and you do a slight squeeze just on the bottle. And it shouldn't sound much. An old boss of mine told me that it should sound like a satisfied woman. I don't know if that's true. No, that's not true, but it shouldn't sound much anyway. Maybe he didn't satisfy his women, so well. Anyway, there should just be a small, so it doesn't go like it does on a Grand Prix race or anything. That's not how you open champagne. And when you do the service of champagne, it's, of course, you know there's a lot of mousse, and to avoid it foaming too much, it's a good way to pour it is if you lean the glass like this. And so if you pour it like this, you will have much less foam, so it will be much easier for you to pour, and that's not so time consuming. Otherwise you'll have to wait until the foam is gone. So that's how you open champagne. So again, thanks for listening. Santé. I'm not spitting it out.